And that was a heck of a delay, Doc. What did you do? Did you break StreamYard? It's supposed to be 2 seconds, and it was like
I'll
5.
never
Totally
tell.
All right. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just 3 nerdy veterans geeking it out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we are going to introduce you to our guest, Miss Autumn Juliet. Can you please introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers?
Yeah, so I am Autumn Juliet, like he just said. I'm 23 years old, so I'm a baby. I've been narrating audiobooks since 2020, and so I'm really just getting my foot into the door, but I've done about 7+ books, and I've won 2 awards, and I'm still going at it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And since you said you won the award, we do have that queued. Give me just a second. I'm assuming everyone else can see the. So we got a little headshot right there with her award, or you could see them all in their glory.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, steamy romance. Wait, steamy romance is actually a category, so I shouldn't say that. But I'm assuming the autumnal one, the pastel one, people can see because I can't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can see it. So.
All right, perfect. I'm colorblind, so it just looks like white to me.
Oh, yeah, it's like pale blue.
I had to get someone to look over my shoulder to see if that picture just didn't load or there was something there when we were grabbing the award pictures. I was like, no, I could totally see it. But then when you're colorblind, you realize people make fun of you all the time, so you never know if it's really there or they're just messing with you. I'm still not convinced those little circles have numbers in them.
JR, people just make fun of you. It's not because you're colorblind.
No, I'm just talking about the issues of color. Like those little circle tests, Doc, I am not convinced there are real numbers in there. I think you guys it's a conspiracy against us. It's a grand conspiracy, and I just wasn't invited. I'm
not going to say you're wrong.
People, if you agree, people, put a note in the comments section. Do your part. Tell Doc she's wrong. All right. So the next part of the
you were wrong. You're so.
They should tell you you're wrong. They should tell you you're wrong anyway, just on account of.
JR. Okay.
I might have had a little too much caffeine before this episode. All right. So the next part of the introduction, dear listener, is how we found them. So I actually first found Autumn through Mel Todd. She narrates for the great and mighty Mel. So, and then she narrated a story that Doc and I wrote, a short story that will be coming out this year. It is working its way through Audible, and that could be 3 days, 3 years, 3 decades. You just never know.
It's like your career in the Army. Nobody ever knows.
I mean, it's pretty clear 8.5 years. Now, whether I actually worked that whole 8.5 years, I was a specialist a couple times.
Oh, so maybe more like your time in grade?
Yeah. Well, I was also a corporal a couple times, so I don't know if that counts towards the E4 Mafia cred. Probably not. They don't generally claim us.
No. You get to be the NCO's bitch if you're a corporal.
Basically, yeah. So, but I was so good at it, I did it 3 times.
So how did I meet? Oh, God. I think I met you through your dad, actually, before you started narrating for Mel. And then in 2020, you saved my sanity.
Yeah. Oh, I did.
Yeah. So as everybody knows, 2020 was the year that was, or it could have been. Yeah. And
the Panini.
Autumn was amazing because Dragon Con went virtual on very short notice. Mm-hmm. And in an attempt to get as many panels and content out there for the fantasy literature fans at Dragon Con, I managed to get a bunch of panels recorded. I think we did like 12 or something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
And then Autumn went and did all the video editing and some of the fine tuning and put bumpers on things and was absolutely amazing.
Oh,
because I would have had a nervous breakdown if I tried doing it. And you did that amazing blooper reel, which
that was so fun. I love doing that.
I still have people coming. Like, I have walked up on people watching it at Dragon Con, and they're like, why can't we have one of these? And I'm like, I'm not sure that we have a way of filming bloopers without like having 24/7 camera rolling in the track.
Yeah.
It was like a one-time magical thing that still gets plays.
That was so much fun. I like was learning new editing skills while doing it too. And I just like the whole brony situation, like that whole story arc was like my favorite thing to edit. Like edit him being kicked into the Grand Canyon. Chef's kiss.
It was amazing. I loved it. And by the way, he still gets teased about it. And I still get glared at and going, I actually don't get glared at. Dakota gets glared at. And then Dakota looks at me and goes, you're the one who said he was a brony, but I'm getting all the blame.
You lucked out then. So the other thing, Doc, I don't know if you remember, is 2020 was the year we rebooted from the sci-fi shenanigans to the blasters and blades. And we had old episodes that were edited on our old program when we were using, we probably shouldn't name them, but the older program before we found StreamYards was less, shall we say, user-friendly. And Autumn edited because it recorded all of us separately, and she edited the tracks together so we could use some of those old episodes.
Yep.
When we first started. So
I forgot about that.
I forgot about that too.
Well, you did a stellar job because we had no complaints.
So dramatic, she couldn't handle it anymore.
It was like I did so much video editing that year that it's like all just kind of blurs together.
I get that. And you've done a lot since then, so there's no reason a podcast would take precedence over all the books you've narrated.
I think I remember that. I didn't think that was 2020.
It was. That was the year that we did the switchover, so that would have been the year. You've done some since then.
Editing for you. I just
you did Davis. You did Davis Assuras because his internet in the mountains of Timbuktu, where he lives, it's like 3 strings and a tin can connecting him to the internet, so it was really bad. You saved the episode, so thank you.
No, I remember that now. I remember receiving that and being like, oh man. Okay.
Which sucks because Davis was a lot of fun to interview and I'd love to have him back, but until the Wi-Fi situation is improved, I'm just like, oh.
Yeah.
All right, Doc, you get to ask the religion question, but you like her already, so we probably won't kick her even if she gets the wrong answer.
We won't kick her. Besides, she'll just send you a bill if you do.
There we go.
Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
All right. So this is hard because when I was younger, I probably would have said Star Wars because like my brother and I would like play with lightsabers and like constantly be Jedis and stuff like that. But
awesome.
Like it was always something that I would watch because my brothers were watching it. And so like as I grew up, I was kind of like not really into Star Wars. So you can crucify me now.
You're fine.
Star Trek I got into more when I was like a teenager because my dad was like, let's watch Star Trek together. I was like, okay. And so I think Next Generation, I think so. That's the one we were watching, I think.
It all depends on what the captain looked like.
Yes. Wait, it was
Male or
Kirk. So
okay, James T. Kirk is the original.
That's the original.
And I could see your dad making you watch the original just because something about continuity or whatever.
Yeah. So we were watching that, and so then I grew a love for Star Trek. And then Firefly, I watched I shouldn't have been watching Firefly, but my parents were like having me watch Firefly with them when I was like 8 years old. I was like, this show is awesome. So probably like a little bit of all three, but I don't say one is like my religion because I don't know.
That's okay.
You did learn with your dad to appreciate the Shatner comma.
Yes, I did.
It's almost like the walk-in comma, but not as classy.
Yeah, because he was like, every time we would watch an episode, like they're 45 minutes, right? They would end up being like an hour and a half because he would pause it and he would be like, see, in this time, this was like so controversial and like it was like so amazing.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I was like,
I'm never watching Star Trek with your dad. I'm never doing it.
Dude, sign me up. That sounds fun.
That's like my whole family though. Like if a show is 30 minutes, it's going to take us an hour because we will pause it and talk about something like politics, religion, society. Like we will just be like, and this is why relationships don't work.
Doc, we are keeping her. We're adopting her whole family into the wackadoodle clan we call the Blasters and Blades podcast. You're stuck with them. These are my kind of people.
Sounds great.
I'm going to kidnap your dad and we're going to watch Star Trek. There you go. Her dad didn't confess these things to us.
Kidnap her dad, you kidnap Robert, and her mom and I will just go drink the bourbon.
Yes.
Wait, what if we take the bourbon with us? We got classy standards, you know?
You're not taking the bourbon.
That's the hill you're going to die on, the bourbon. Okay.
It's good.
See, we really ought to get booze companies to sponsor us, but they just call us
My family has never left booze behind. Just saying.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. All right, Doc. We got one more religion question. We're going to see what interesting stuff she gives us.
Right. Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Willow?
So, this is where like my age comes in because I only know The Wheel of Time because of my dad. I can guarantee you on his podcast, he was going off about The Wheel of Time. And then Willow, I don't know what that is. And then Game of Thrones, I never got into Game of Thrones.
So what is your favorite fantasy property then?
My favorite? Okay, when I was like in middle school, like elementary, middle school, it would have been Percy Jackson all the way. I was obsessed.
Oh, good choice.
I was obsessed. I was like, I wanted to be a daughter of Apollo or a daughter of Poseidon. Like that was like me and my friends, we would write fan fiction before we understood what fan fiction was. And it would be like, the daughter of Apollo is like fighting off like this thing. And like, we would email it to each other and then we would all like add on to it. And so it would just be like basically a fan fiction collab between our friendship group of Percy Jackson.
That is pretty cool though. I like that.
And then as I grew older, probably Harry Potter. I've like read all of those books probably 7 times. If we're talking about just books. Yeah.
We picked the properties because we wanted them to be the most accessible. So ones that were across multiple platforms. So books or movies, all fair game. Or comics in some cases.
Yeah. Yeah.
So which was your first love though? Sci-fi or fantasy?
I guess fantasy because I was really into like the Greek mythology. So like because of Percy Jackson, and then I got into like the dystopian stuff, which I guess is sci-fi.
Yep.
I think it depends on how it is, what the mechanic is underneath it.
Right, because that almost feels like, is urban sci-fi a thing?
It can be.
Like urban sci-fi fantasy.
You narrated an urban sci-fi.
Yeah, wait, so, yeah, well, I thought that was urban fantasy. Wait, which one?
No choice. The Caelid Chronicles.
No, I haven't narrated.
Oh, you haven't narrated those?
No. I did narrate the short story, Isabella's Campaign.
Yes, that is urban sci-fi.
That would be urban sci-fi.
And that was in the Storming Area 51 anthology.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
See?
Good anthology. Stupid FBI cock-blocked us.
Well, you know, it's what the government's there for. Cock-blocking
all
the right. Trying to have fun.
Yes.
All we did was want to just have a little party, and they acted like it was something special. Anyway, so what was your first memory of engaging in speculative fiction? So that's the large umbrella. You know, Doc, we really ought to have episode where we talk about spec fic and what qualifies, and make that a panel.
You know,
write that down. So for those of you listening at home, she just shot me the one finger salute, but she does love me. It's obvious.
It's JR's favorite hand gesture.
This is true. It's a true story. So what was your first memory of engaging in speculative fiction? You're young enough that it could have been video games, board games, movies, books, like all of the venues were available to you.
So, I guess. So is speculative fiction? What?
Sci-fi, fantasy, horror,
okay,
paranormal, all the things.
I mean, I guess cartoons.
Okay.
Because like those are like the earliest gateway to like fandoms. So like I guess probably the earliest, technically my brother would claim that it would be making me play Mortal Kombat with him at like 5 years
excellent
old.
Brother. He did well.
That would be his claim. But I don't remember that because I was like 5 years old. And then probably like Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Ooh, good one.
And then
I watched that with my kids.
Yeah, so good. And then I guess I'm trying to think of like games I played when I was younger, because I usually just followed my older brother's lead with like hobbies that we would do, unless it was like me wanting to play with Barbie dolls and dress up. So he like really loved like Oblivion and Mortal Kombat and like those like old GameCube games with like the Pokemon battle.
Oh, yeah.
I feel old listening to her describe these games.
It's okay, Doc. Me too. So first off, your brother, if he's listening, he gets the seal of approval. That was most excellent, introducing you to all the cool things. Yeah. And I'm disappointed that he didn't want to play Barbies with you. He can do better next time.
He would want to use like the jet, like Anakin action figure and like have him flip in the air and like kill my Barbie, and I would be like, what the heck?
I mean, that's acceptable. I mean, he played with you though, right? So it counts. Your dad did good.
She's a guy. Like, she's getting her hair done.
So I had it easy. My little sister was a tomboy, so I didn't have to worry about any of that. She was totally game. So we talked about how you kind of discovered speculative fiction through, your nerdy family, which is kind of a cool way to do it. But what is it about that sort of umbrella of groupings of nerddom that you love so much?
I think for me, it's like the characters and like the creativity of the world. So okay. I love like things that are like stories that are character driven, and like getting emotionally connected to characters and just like falling in love with them. So like the plot and like the world can be secondary because they're the ones driving it, right? But then if you have a very like creative, interesting, unique world, it allows you to completely escape into it. And so you can live like all these different worlds and lives through these characters and these book series and TV shows and stuff like that. And I was a weird kid, I think a lot of people who are like really into like all of this like fan stuff and speculative fiction is like they were weird kids. And so like I had a crazy imagination, and I would be like running around in the backyard pretending that I was a cat in like a cat society, because my friend, she was like super obsessed with Warrior Cats books. And so like we would play that together and then pretend to like build forts and societies and like cultures and all these pretend games. And so reading those books and being a part of those like TV shows and movies and video games, like that just builds that imagination in your brain, and it just like becomes just so much creativity. It's like creativity on fire.
I like it though. I mean, that's good for your brain. Like society lost someone. They forgot how to be quiet in their own heads and just have fun and think of things, which is what you were doing when you were playing outside with your imagination and your friends. When they started relying on TV screens and video games to do it for them, I think we lose as a race. So as a human race, I should say.
Yeah.
Got everything in moderation.
I love killing things. It's the only reason you survive so long is so I can kill things on machines.
This is true. I'm not saying I'm not against it. I mean, like, Skyrim is my crack. I'm just saying you got to learn to balance it.
Yeah.
So, how did your love of speculative fiction as a genre translate into you? I don't know if telling stories is the right way, but definitely performing them as an audiobook narrator.
Yeah. So I think I don't know how like big this career will get, but I think I was always meant to do it because I literally, for as long as I can remember, would find quiet places in my house to read my books because I had to, or I didn't have to, but like it was very hard for me not to read them out loud and give everyone their own inflection and character voices. So like, and so I had my friends, they would be like, I can't believe you read so slow. Like, why do you read so slow? Because they would be like competitive about finishing books. So they'd be like, I got this book Monday and I finished it Wednesday. And it's like a 700-page book. I'm over here taking like 2 weeks to read a book because like I couldn't read without it pacing right. So like I had to wait for the pause of that dramatic moment in the book. I couldn't speed read through it because it needed to happen. And so when I started to get into audiobook narration, it just felt natural. Like, oh, I've been doing this. Like I've been telling these stories just to myself. So it kind of just felt like it meant to be.
That makes sense. Like, I could definitely see that, taking the time to enjoy it. So do you get like, I know I do this because I edit, and I've heard other narrators say this. I edit these podcasts where needed. And so I hear my own voice and I cringe. Do you do that with your own narration as a audiobook expert, I should say?
Yes. I mean, it's gotten so much better, but oh man, like Mel and I have talked about the first book that I narrated, and like we have talked about like maybe I should redo it because I have improved so much. And it's just like, oh, that first book to listen back to it's a little rough.
So I give you this as a for instance.
Like it though, because the character is kind of rough.
She is
like that. Does that make any sense? Because that's how you started.
No, it does.
You kind of grew with the character. Because I've listened to all of them, and I feel like you've kind of grown with the character in a way.
Yeah,
and maybe it's because I know you, and so I also know that you're roughly the same age as the character, particularly in the early books of My Luck. So I'm like that. I did tease Mel. I'm like, so it's typecasting, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I do agree with that. I remember
I've listened. Go ahead.
Sorry, I remember like talking to Mel when I was first prepping that book, and I was like, Corey is going through it. I feel really bad for her. And she's like, I know, but it gets better, kind of.
Eventually.
So what I was going to say was that I listened to the Lost Fleet books by Jack Campbell, and he has Christian Rummel narrate them. Now, he was traditionally published, so the books come out over a span of several years. But if you listen to them like I did, because they were already done at that point, I listened to them from book 1 to book like 14, I think. Yeah. And you could actually hear the progression of Christian Rommel, who is the narrator, who's actually narrated a book for me too. Like you can hear him get progressively better.
Yeah.
And as someone who once you find someone you like, you tend to follow them. That's kind of a cool experience. And you'd almost take that away. I mean, unless it's horrible. Yeah.
No,
I mean, if it's just, I could do better.
It's just one of those things where like when you have like any work that you've done from start to like where you are now, and it's like published, and then you go back and look at it, you're like, oh man, like I'm just, like it's just like you can see how much you've grown, which is great, but at the same time you're like, oh man, I've grown. and people can see that.
That's a good thing.
It is. It's just like it's
like the
odd.
super fans like to follow that with you.
Yeah, that's true. I feel the
but
same
yeah.
way about like Nick Podell. Like his
Yeah.
Name of the Wind. I love that book series. And of course it's like never gonna get finished. But like
Why
I
isn't it
love
gonna get
the
finished?
narration of that. And like he will go on and on about like how he's like, oh no, don't talk to me about it.
Why isn't that book series gonna be finished? Oh, she's giving us the look.
Because the author is just, it's been like 10 years, I think.
That's sadness.
Yeah. In his case, it sounds like it's a perfectionist problem, rather than like a laziness problem. Like some people.
All right, Doc. The next question is you, or I'll keep rambling, and that might bore the listeners. So save me from myself.
Oh, well, I mean, I think I already know who your favorite narrator is.
Oh, do you? I kind of just mentioned his name.
Is it Nick Podell?
Yeah.
So, though JR is going to fuss at me because I skipped the order. Oh. So, for Mr. Rule following, not seat of his pants. Were there any formidable moments that, you know, shaped who you are as a narrator?
Yes. Well, shaped who I am as a narrator. Yeah, I would say probably theater. So I was in theater in high school. I was like at this community theater, and then I graduated Kennesaw State University with a theater degree.
Go out.
Yeah.
Doc knows that school.
With a concentration in acting, because we don't have a voice acting concentration. But halfway through, so like my sophomore year, I like realized that I hate being on stage and like acting in front of people. And I was like, and I like hate driving into downtown Atlanta. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, that's literally all this career is like existing in like cities and being on stage or in front of a camera all the time. And I was like, and so my dad, he had been having his books narrated for years now. And so I was like, well, you know, I like books and I used to read them out loud, and maybe I could, you know, get into that. And then literally as I was like thinking about that, I got there was like a one-time class being offered for voice acting. And so I was like, all right, I'm taking it. And so I got trained in like how to do voice acting for like video games and commercials and animation and audiobook narration as well. And I was like, okay, yes, this is what I want to do. But I didn't want to do narration in the sense of like very what's the word? Like even like not very performative. So there's like different styles of narration, and so there's styles.
Yeah, like the boring. He went into the room, he opened up the box.
So I definitely knew that like I wanted people to listen to my books and feel like they're listening to multiple different characters and they're being in this world. And it's not just like, wait, who said that? Was that the same person? Like, I didn't want that. I wanted each character to be distinct and feel uniquely themselves. And I think my background in theater and like knowing how to delve into different characters and be different characters really helped with that, because now I can be all of the characters in just one book.
Okay. So this is going to go a little out of order. Doc, remind me to scat it out or mark it out later. But since you did mention it, you wanted each of them to have their own personality.
Yeah.
How do you go about tracking all that so in your head you can be consistent?
Yeah. So sometimes it's easier than others. Sometimes like I just like have a voice and it's like in my head and it's just not gonna like leave and it just is stuck in there and it's great. Um, like they're very distinct. And other times, I have to listen to them over and over again. So the way I do that is I will um usually it depends on the author, but I will either come up with a voice based on how I think they would sound from reading the story, or I will come up with a few options and send it to the author to get verification if that's how they think that character sounds. If we agree on one of them, then I keep it. And if I ever forget how they sound, I have to listen to it a couple of times to jog my memory, and then I mimic it.
Are you able to do that with accents too?
Almost like most of the time. Depending on the accent, it's really hard because like so for example, in Mel's books, for My Luck, the Twisted Luck series, about halfway through the series, she started integrating like political conflicts between China and Japan. And so there were multiple situations where people from China and Japan would be arguing and having conversations with each other, and I had to figure out how to make sure that those accents were somehow distinctly different when to an American ear, they don't sound very different. So
Right.
that was that was really hard, and I I will say like I don't think I did like the best job because that's really hard to do. But I tried my best, that I will say. Um, for sure. I definitely try my hardest to make sure that I'm doing an accent authentically and not doing a stereotype because that's the last thing I want to do.
So speaking of the pronunciation, since we're going there,
Mhm.
when you do the pronunciation for sci-fi and fantasy words that are just made up, like what's your process for coming up with those? Because some of them, it's like they just took the alphabet soup, grabbed a spoon, and like, oh, we're gonna throw this together, and we've got a word.
Yeah. So with that, I will contact the author with like I'll have like a spreadsheet and I'll write down every time I see a word that I'm like, I don't know what the heck that is. And I will put it in a spreadsheet and I will ask them to spell it out for me phonetically or send me a audio voice file of how it sounds. And then I will go back to it whenever I come across that word until it's memorized in my brain.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, since we've been all out of order, I'm going to try to get us back on track because Doc is going to laugh because I normally complain when she's doing that to us. So, as a reader, because obviously we've established you enjoy books. Given that you're in the narrating field yourself now, do you listen to other people's audiobooks more often than not, or do you find yourself reading in print now?
So I don't I think if I'm gonna read a book, I usually lean towards an audiobook, because well, even though I prefer paperback books, like I prefer the feeling and to sit down and read a book, but like I don't always have to like if I do that, I generally don't end up finishing the book unless I'm obsessed with it. And then I don't sleep because I just read this book for like from 4 p.m. to 8 a.m. Um but that so I generally lean towards audiobooks in that case. Yeah.
Okay, so we've been all over the place, so there's not really a transition, but we do like to ask the nerdy fandom type question. So, if you're relatively new to the narration space, so
Mhm.
what milestones are you looking for? Like, you've already won some awards. I don't know how big they are because I don't really follow all of that. But what's going to be the big one for you that's going to be like, oh, I have arrived?
For the next, I probably, uh, oh man, I don't like if someone came up, if someone asked for my autograph, that'd be so cool. Um, yeah, but like I think career-wise, that's hard to say because like on one hand, I'm like, I would love to be more involved in like an audiobook publishing company, but at the same time, I don't know, like I think I would prefer to be involved in like more smaller ones, because I like the relational aspect of that rather than like a big company just being like, please, here, book. But then you get a lot of like benefits from that because there's like all these things that they have to follow. But I think, I don't know, I'm just rambling now. But like if I were like if someone were to come up to me, like if I were at Dragon Con and someone would be like, are you Autumn Juliet? I think I would lose my mind. I'd be like, yes.
So, all right. So, but don't worry, people, because as nervous as she is, there's only like 100 people that go to Dragon Con, so it's not that bad. She'll be okay. All right. So, before we get too far in, we're going to pause for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the woman this time. Thank you, Mel Todd. And as an added bonus, you will get to hear Autumn's professional narration with this commercial for My Luck. So roll that beautiful beat. Oh, I can't use that. They'll sue us.
In a world where magic is controlled by law and government, mages are both coddled and persecuted. Corey Monroe knows she isn't a mage, and her best friend is. Reality isn't always what you know. If you are looking for an urban fantasy with found family, an education-based magic system, and evolving storylines, try My Luck by Mel Todd, book 1 in the Twisted Luck series. Available exclusively on Amazon.
All right. See, that wasn't bad. That was awesome. All right. So thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. But let's dive in first. Before we continue, Autumn, can you give us sort of like the Reader's Digest? You mentioned some of the books, but what all have you worked on as a narrator?
All right. So I have done... So I've been working on the series with Mel Todd, which is the Twisted Luck series. And then I've done a few short stories. So I did the short story Isabella's Campaign, which is in the I'm blanking on it. The anthology. The
Storming Area 51.
Thank you. I was like, we literally just talked about that. And then I did Love Finds a Way for you guys.
Which will be coming out as soon as Audible does their thing.
Yeah. And then I did a standalone book called One Heart That Beats for Two. And that's the book that I got the 2 awards for.
Is it vampire? Is it a vampire with a title like that?
No. So it's a paranormal romance. And
okay, I gotta ask you something. Was it awkward because you are related to the author?
It was not awkward.
Okay.
Yes. It was not awkward because there wasn't like, it's a closed door romance. So there wasn't.
It's very clean.
Yes. And yeah, the only thing was like when it's your family, you get like frustrated when they ask things of you, even though it's like, okay, if we weren't related, this would be perfectly normal. But because you are my family member, I'm gonna be annoyed. That was like the only complication. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're asking me to do this. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
So he won't listen to this episode, so you're totally okay. He'll never know you said that.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay. I was like, you're being annoying right now. Like, I just want to let you know, you're being annoying.
It's okay. Robert's used to it.
Yeah, it's fine.
All right, Doc. The next question is yours.
I have no idea where we are in any of this.
18 through 21 are yours. See, this is how we do things professional. Like, we talk about numbers on the air.
JR, can you count to 10?
I got to 20 if I take my shoes and socks off.
Ooh, that's really high for you. You must be having a good day with that brain damage.
I mean, you know.
What is your favorite genre to narrate?
Mm. Probably urban fantasy, because I think it's more in line with my vocal style. I did do that science fiction, urban science fiction one, and yeah, it was interesting because like the tone of the story, I was like it felt very different to read, because I'm very used to narrating things that are more sarcastic and um like more emotive. Not that the story wasn't emotive, but
Well, I mean,
it was third person, it was science fiction, and so I was like reading all like the science jargon and like we're going like, and it was just like, wow, this is really like I felt like out of my element. Whereas with urban fantasy, um, or even um just like normal fiction, I feel more it feels more natural. But it's really fun to narrate like fantastical things. Like I love doing all like the weird voices for like cat creatures or dragons. Like that's really fun.
is there a genre that's harder to prepare for you when you're getting ready to read?
Probably I don't know if it would be necessarily a genre, but like certain things in genres. So like it's harder to prepare for something where there's like a lot of different there's like a lot of characters, because then you're like I have to figure out how to make each character's voice distinct, or there's like a lot of new words that have been created for the story. So that can be difficult. um but I wouldn't say there's necessarily a genre unless it's like um
Hard to say words is not a genre then, right?
yeah.
So
You're giving me the look like, Cisca, you're crazy again.
So let me ask it this way. So like when I'm hard of hearing, right? So when I don't tend to have a preference for how things are pronounced. I mean, there are some like it's corpsman, not corpseman. Like there's some that are just the accepted way. Obviously that matters. But when it comes up to made up words, like I tend not to care because I'm not that picky because of my hearing. Is it easier when you get an author like that who's like, yeah, I mean, I just wrote it, but if you want to say it this way, that's perfectly okay. I don't care. Or is it better when they say, no, this is exactly how it sounds in my head canon?
I think technically the former is easier because like you don't have to worry about it. You're just like, hey, do you care? And they're like, not really. And you're like, cool. And then you just go for it. But then the problem with that is that if you pronounce it differently every time, the reader's going to notice. And then if the way you pronounce it is very different to the way it's spelled, then like you're going to have readers who are like, I read this book and the way the narrator pronounced it is like nothing like the way it's written in the book. And so when you have an author who's like, it's pronounced this way, it saves you from like the continuity errors of just being a human being, kind of.
Who said we were human? That's awful bold of you to assume.
I mean, you weren't.
I thought that might get a shock response, Doc, but I guess Robert ruined her.
She may have had a warning or two.
All right, keep going, Doc.
So, how long does it take you on average to narrate a book?
Oh gosh. So it's like,
because it's a process. So how long does it take you typically to like set up a book? Mm-hmm. And I mean, we had somebody on and they were like, it takes for every finished hour. She's like, that's like 4 hours worth of work going into a finished hour. Is that normal?
That's actually on the lower end. So it's anywhere from 4 to 6 being like the average. If you get if you're like, if it takes you 8 hours for one finished hour, then like that's like you're having a lot of problems. Either like you have a full-time job, or like you have like a lot of noise in your neighborhood where you live and stuff like that, which is just normally the case anyways. And then if it's below 4, then that means like you've got great stamina and you're somewhere super quiet.
So you mentioned stamina. Are there things like, everyone sees the movies where the voice actors do the weird vocal trills or whatever, where they're like prepping their voice to go on stage? I don't know if people actually do that who sing, because I don't. But I mean, are there things you do to exercise your voice and to prepare when you're going into the booth?
Sometimes I do. It depends on when I record. So if I'm recording in the morning, I have to wait like a solid hour before I get into the booth, because if I just wake up, brush my teeth, go into the booth, like my voice is going to sound like this, and it's not gonna look good for a reader. Like it's not gonna be fun. So like I have to wake up for like an hour, drink water, have coffee because I need coffee.
As you do.
Yes. And then if I feel like my mouth is like not gonna articulate well, I will do like tongue twisters, or I will sing a few songs in the booth to get my vocal cords warmed up. But if I record in the afternoon, I've usually been like talking during the day. And so my vocal cords are all warmed up and I've been articulating throughout the day, so I can jump right in, and it's a lot easier.
So do you ever record the preparations for more blooper rails like we discussed earlier?
Actually, I have a whole folder of bloopers.
Oh, that's awesome. Are they on your website for people to go listen?
No, I have actually been planning on like trying to clip them together and like upload them on Instagram or somewhere, because they're really listen, I'm gonna toot my own horn. They're really funny.
That's awesome. If you did a Patreon, you could do that on either Patreon or like TikTok even.
Yeah.
So you mentioned going into your booth. Now that's generally just the phrase people use when they go to record. Yeah. Some people have a booth, some don't. So like I know Paulie Cooley just records in his office, so you hear him complain a lot about the neighbor who's obsessively like weed whacking or like leaf blowing. I'm pretty much convinced his co-host on his podcast pays people to show up and make noise, because that's just what Terry Mixon would do. But like, do you have an actual booth, or do you just record in your room or some closet, or what?
So I have a closet in the basement, and I have basically like PVC piping like in a box.
Okay.
And so I put that in the closet, and then I have moving blankets over the box, and then around the closet walls is the foam. I'm literally sound foam. Cool. Because the way sound treating works is like you need space between your walls so that the sound can reflect off that space. So it's like you want a box inside a box, or like a lot of different shapes and move like objects of like blankets and foam and stuff like that, so that the sound can bounce off of that or be absorbed by that rather than like bouncing off.
I've seen sound booths where they have those weird shapes, and I just thought that would drive me bonkers, partly because being colorblind, I see textures better, and partly I'm probably just a tad OCD. I didn't realize there was a reason they did that, which is kind of cool. Have you done the great video, like the video tour of your studio for your, like, I don't know, Instagram? Because we linked that below.
I have not done that. Usually I have like videos of me, and you can like, it looks like I'm in like this orange room, like padded room, because the moving blankets are orange, like orange and blue.
That's cool. All right. Well, you can find the link for her Instagram below, and you can see some of those videos she mentioned. So when you narrate a book, do you read it before you go through it, or do you just cold read it and that's what you get, like, for each project?
I will read through the book and I will prep it. Which for me, that is like reading through the book all the way, noting any like pronunciations of like noting any words that have been created by the author, or new character names that I need to make sure the pronunciation of is correct. I will put that in a spreadsheet, and then I will also decide colors for characters, and I will highlight their lines almost like it's a script. So that's like my theater nerdness coming out. And so I will highlight their lines so that when I'm narrating, I know when to flip into different character voices so that it's a smooth transition rather than me stopping and starting constantly. So yeah.
Okay. So we've talked about your process as you read the books or narrate them or perform them. I'm not sure the proper terms to use. It sounds like all of the above to me. But obviously, some narrators are farther along in their career and they can afford to be picky. You are clearly newer and you're going to, to a point, take what you can get. I get that. Like, you're young and hungry in your career. But at some point in time, you're going to get to the point where you can say yay or nay to projects. And when you do that, how do you think you're going to determine what projects you accept versus which ones you pass on?
Yeah. So technically I'm already like avoiding some because I will not do like sex scenes and stuff like that. So like I'm not going, so on ACX, which is where like I will audition for a lot of books, there will be plenty of, the erotica. And so I don't audition for those. And if someone were like, "Hey, can you narrate for this?" I would be like, "Sorry, I don't do that." But if I get to a point where I'm like a big shot and I can say yes and no, I probably I don't know yet, because like I have yet to come across like a genre of book that I'm like, ugh, I hated that. Um, I mean, science fiction, I guess, is like one that I just don't know if my vocal style is suited for, but that's like a personal thing. So if an author wants me to narrate their book, like then they like my voice and they want me to do it. So I have nothing against like that genre. I really can't.
It's more about your finding the right fit then, it sounds like, than anything.
Yeah. So I think it would be more about like, I think I would be pickier with, I guess, like authors, if that makes sense. So like if it's someone who is going to be making my life crazy, then I would be like, no, thank you. But if it's someone like Mel Todd, then I would be like,
amazing.
So let me tweak the question a little bit. So you mentioned that you avoid the intimate scenes. Do you mean like books that's all there is, or anything that has Congress that might lead to reproduction? You don't want to narrate those. Like, is it a firm line, or is it just the genre? Because they are distinct. You will have regular romance that has obvious sex scenes in it.
Right.
And you'll have, obviously, there's the steamier degrees that we don't cover on this podcast either. But is it a firm line for you because whatever personal convictions, or is it you just don't want to go into the more whatever's past R-rated?
Or is her dad bribing her?
No. So it's a firm line for me because
that's respectable.
It's just a personal choice because I just don't really want to do that.
Oh, I think it's great. However, I'll talk to you about that offline.
Okay.
It has led to some interesting bloopers. Terry Mixon talks about one where they got to a steamier scene. It's a husband and wife narrating team, and they're like, "Oh, stop! Mom's outside the door," because they were recording in their bedroom closet and they forgot to edit that out.
Oh my god!
Because I guess their mom was babysitting their kids while they were doing their, their day job as audiobook narrators.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
That
obviously,
would be awkward.
that would make Thanksgiving really weird that year. So because you put so much effort into the final production, so this is really very much a performance. I know some people, because for various ADHD reasons, looking at you, Doc, will listen to their audiobooks faster than normal speeds. Does that bug you as a creative?
Not at all.
You don't care? I know some narrators are like, no, you're not supposed to tell me you listen to it at 1.5 speed.
Yeah. Yeah, no, because it's like, I know that I am confident in the way I pace the story. And so if someone is just like, I literally just can't deal with normal pacing, because I've been there. Like, I will be like watching a video, usually it's a YouTube video, and I'm just like, I don't have time for this 2x speed.
I do that too.
Yeah, it's like, it's like a personal preference. It's just like, I wouldn't mind if someone had to slow it down, if they were like, she talks too fast, I need this slowed down. Because I've heard of that too. It's rare, but I've heard of that too, where people are like, they talk too fast, I can't understand, and so they slow it down. So I mean, they bought the book, so it's like, then
so
listen to it how you want.
Yeah, it's fair. That's fair. I've actually listened to I've been teaching myself to cook, so a lot of YouTube videos. There's this one Southern lady, and bless her heart, she's a sweet lady based on her videos, but she talks so slow that by 2x speed, she's normal, and I can understand it.
Yes, there are literally YouTube channels where like I will watch a video and I'm like, and I put them on 2x speed, and I'm like, okay, now you're speaking normally. Why were you talking so slow? Like, I just give me the information now.
And for all I was raised in Virginia, I don't know that I talk as slow as most Southerners. So when I don't know if you remember the Micro Machine Man, the commercial where he would do the speed read.
You don't necessarily talk that slow, but you definitely are on that speed.
Ooh, that was a sick burn. I'll take it. Well done. You even got the timing right, and for the time of night, like, I'm impressed, Doc.
Yeah, no, especially for today. For some reason, I woke up at like 4:30 this morning, and it's like 10 p.m. now. So I'm impressed I'm awake.
Oh, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and we're going to have to add this to the template, but you've only done solo work, correct? By solo, I mean single narrator. Are you open, or do you think you'd want to, at some point in your career, do work where it's like two narrators or an ensemble together?
That's actually really funny that you bring that up, because I will be doing that for my dad's new book. It's his novella book, which is like a bunch of short stories compiled together of his series Sentinels of Creation. And so I will be featured in that book doing some stories along with Nick Podell.
Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm so excited. We're gonna get recording on that real soon, because I am just about finishing up Fated Luck with Mel Todd. Yeah,
I know. I can't
Mel
wait.
Said
are coming out of the next.
So Mel said, when I told her we were interviewing you, that I should ask you what you're working on right now. Is it Fated Luck?
Yes, it is Fated Luck. And literally, I'm not kidding. I was like, I have the epilogue left. Like, the epilogue is all I have to record, but as audiobook narration happens, like, I had a conflict that happened like I was in the middle. I was like literally about to read the first sentence, and then I get a phone call, and I'm like, ugh. And I had to like stop. I had to go. And I was like, dang it.
And so by the time you listen to this episode, because we do record these in advance by about a month, it will probably be through the audio editing phase, and then it's up to the Audible gods on what decade they publish it.
Yeah.
And if you didn't hear her when she was talking about that, or if you're listening, excuse me, and you're not watching, she did the excited girl hair swish, which was very impressive. So you really should check out the YouTube video just for that little moment. I'm balding, so I can't do that. Doc, though, I mean, she's just too not girly for that. She's been around us grunts for too long. All right, so we try to keep. Go ahead, Doc.
It's okay.
So we try to keep this, generally speaking, aimed towards listeners and consumers because we're all nerds first that love to read and enjoy the content. But if you, as a narrator, were giving advice to a author that is, or a publisher who's never worked with a narrator before, what advice would you give them to make your job as a creative easier?
To make my job easier.
Yes.
I think I would, for me, it would be like upfront with like how much collaboration you want to have. So, I'm usually the one who instigates that, but like, do you want to hear character voices? Do you want to be a part of the editing process? Do you want to be involved at all, or do you want me to just like do my thing, send you the files, and then that's that? That's really helpful because then I know like at what process do I need to contact the author for their involvement rather than just doing my own thing. That's really helpful. Also like spreadsheets. Like if you have, like I've seen some authors where they're like, I have a spreadsheet of all of the names and how I want them pronounced already, like for like high fantasy books. Like I have those and I'll just give them to you. Like that's great. Because if that's important to you, like I would like a narrator wants that. And yeah, I guess just like communicating and figuring out how involved you want to be and what like your style is for this book.
Okay. And then the next piece of advice. So if somebody hears you talking about being an audiobook narrator and like, that sounds like a lot of fun, and I'm a nerd too, and I want to do the thing, what advice would you give someone looking to become an audiobook narrator?
Man. See, I feel so like early in the stages that I need to be like asking others for advice. But like, I guess the advice given to me was like, the thing is, it's quite an investment. So like all of the equipment, all of the time and money and like learning, it takes a lot. And so if you're gonna do it, you have to realize like it's an investment, and then you have to know that like it's the long game. So most narrators who are like huge names now, it took them like 10 years to get to that point. But they just slowly chipped away at it and they got to where they were. And it's because they were good at what they did and they continued to produce good work. And so it's definitely like a slow burn, but you have to keep at it. You can't just like be like, I'm gonna do it sometimes and then I'm gonna drop it and then I'm gonna do it sometimes. So even if it's like not a lot of work at the beginning, if you're just consistently working at it, that is going to slowly roll into a giant snowball. But I've spent like hundreds of dollars. I've spent hundreds of hours. And also just like trying to, I think another thing is, for me, a big deal was learning how to engineer my audio so that I could engineer it for audible quality, because that allowed me to not need to outsource it to someone else to engineer if I were to go through ACX. And also it helps me stand out to authors because they're like, oh, I can have her narrate and engineer it and I don't have to worry about it. So that's a really good thing.
I know some of the more established narrators say that once they get to a certain point, they actually subcontract that out because they can produce more quickly that way. But you kind of have to get to that point first.
Right. I mean, oh my gosh. When I get to that point, you know, maybe that's it. I changed my answer. When I get to the point where I can have someone else engineer and edit my work, that's it.
And you'll know you've arrived.
I have arrived.
So for people that are curious, there is a book. It is a little dated. I don't know if he's updated it, but author J. Daniel Sawyer has one. I think it's called Patio Tracks, but it's about making audiobooks. It's, to my knowledge, the only book on the subject. And I will link it in the show notes if you're interested. And it walks through some of what she's talking about from a more technical side that would bore you to tears if you're not interested in it. So we won't go there. But with that being said, clearly this interview is winding down. But before we let you go, you mentioned in the beginning, so we're going to do a callback, that you did some fanfic writing as a kid with the Percy Jackson books. Do you still do writing on your own?
Not really. I do have this like short story, this Christmas short story, and every once in a while I think about like going back to it and cleaning it up and publishing it because I think it would be a really cute kid story. But yeah, I don't do as much creative writing as I used to, but I used to do creative writing all the time when I was like elementary, middle school, early high school. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe I will. You know, I'm young. I've got plenty.
You got time. So clearly this interview is winding down. But before we let you go, was there anything about the wild world of autumnal? Oh, I forgot to show you the little icon. Well, let me do that. Doc, why didn't you make me do this sooner? Autumnal audio. I hope I didn't butcher that too badly. But is there anything about the look at all that stuff on the bottom? Doc, stop me. About your business that is Autumn Juliet Studios, because I can't pronounce that word again, that we didn't talk about. Doc, just hush, pretend you can't either.
No. Autumnal.
All right, bang bang. Was there anything we did?
Technically, you can't read it either.
I can't. It's just a white screen. Was there anything we didn't ask you that you wanted to tell us before we wrapped up?
I don't think so. Although you mentioned books, and I will say a great book for people who want to get into audiobook narration or voice acting in general, who want to have like a performative style, is the Voiceover Voice Actor, the extended edition. That is the book that I read in my voice acting class. And it's a great read. Like, it's not boring. It's really engaging. And then there's like all of these exercises in the book as well. So like one of the things was that we would, in the class, we would have people describe how our voice sounds to them and like different verbs and stuff, and then how they viewed our voice to be like as a person. And that's like super helpful for understanding like your style and your vocal quality for when you're auditioning. Because if your vocal quality is really geared towards like teen books and you keep going towards like high fantasy novels and auditioning for them, like then you may be putting your eggs in the wrong basket. So I really recommend that book.
Okay. And before we let you go, dear listener, we would like to remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right book. So do your part, people. And that's especially true over on audible.com, where you can review the audiobooks you read. And not only do you get to read or review the story, you get to review the narrator. So there are plenty of books where people say 5-star for the narrator, 1-star for the book, which as an author just hurts my soul. But that helps narrators too. So, I mean, it's not just an author thing. So go do your part, review the books you read. If you're getting them elsewhere, I don't know, Findaway, Barnes and Noble, all the places, they've all got reviewing options. So seriously, it really does help. So do your part.
Yeah.
And with that being said, Miss Autumn Juliet, can you tell listeners how they can find you? And it will, as usual, be in the show notes.
Yes. So they can find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. And then they can find me, and that's Autumnal Audio. My website is also autumnalaudio.com. I have an Instagram, also autumnal_audio. And then I have an ACX page where you can find me and contact me. You can also contact me on my website and anywhere else. But that's where you're going to have like pure author narrator interaction. So that's, you can find me under Autumn Juliet at ACX.
Okay. And you can find us, dear listener, dear viewer, on Twitter at twitter.com/SF_fantasy_show, Sierra Foxtrot _fantasy_show. You can email us at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. I promise we do answer them. We also have a Facebook group where all the shenanigans happen over at facebook.com/groups/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, /groups/Blasters and Blades Podcast. We have a Facebook page where one day we'll get enough likes and follows and all those things where we can give it a dedicated URL, but we promise it's there, so go look for it. And finally, we do have our website at anchor.fm/blasters tack and tack blades. Again, anchor.fm/blasters tack and tack blades, where for as little as 99 cents a month, you can support the show and help keep the lights on. These things aren't free to produce. It's a labor of love, and you can help push that along. And finally, you can support the show more directly at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it is for the podcast. And I promise I will keep my co-hosts, Doc Cisca and Nick Garber, duly medicated. We will give them the psych pills until they are normal.
Yeah.
Huh?
See? Normal. All right, Doc. You're going to bring us home. But before you do, this is a very important question. It's almost a tradition. We made your dad answer. So are you ready for this last one? Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Pineapple on pizza? Oh. Okay. Listen.
The suspense is killing me.
Listen. It's just too much pineapple.
I like her. Doc, we're keeping her.
It's just too much. Okay? Like, I will have a pineapple pizza, but then like I have to take the pineapple off because it's just too much.
I approve. Doc, you found us a good one with this one. We might convert you yet, Doc. We might.
He is not approved.
She's giving us the stank eye if you're listening, people.
Yeah.
So
Jay orders pizza like my son does. It's okay.
I mean, we're about the same emotional level, so it works.
I mean, you know.
8-year-old Grunt, it works.
Thank you for. Oh, wait. That means soon he'll be older than you. Or wait, more mature than you.
Well, it depends. He's playing football. Maybe not.
Don't wish that on me.
All right, Doc.
Thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For the absentee Nick Garber, the very addle-brain JR, I'm Cisca. This was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, with all of our crazy stories, indulging our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, torturing JR, and of course, all things that go boom.
All right.